in case I'm wrong. I'm right. Now time for some controllers to get some love.
3, 2, 1.
If you remember my video last month when I covered the Atari 2600 Plus, I made mention of the controllers that got no love. Namely the keyboard controllers, the driving controllers, and the video touchpad. For this video, I decided to give those controllers some love. With the special help of this modded Atari 2600, which was originally modded for S-Video, but I put in a HDMI plug so I can record on my computer. Yeah! So, where do we start off first? Well, let's start with the first keyboard game that I ever got, and wondered why I did. The first game, Atari's Codebreaker. You know, now that I think about it, I probably should have done this video on Valentine's Day. Oh well. Potato, potato. I'm going to let you in on a little secret with this game. I did not read the instructions when I first got it, and that was a dumb mistake. Mostly because when you get a game, at many times you read the instructions, but often you find yourself getting into it without a hitch. With Codebreaker, you got plenty of hitches. You're trying to figure out which way is up, which way you're going to go, and actually what you're trying to do. If you don't read the instructions to this game, you can get confused about what you're doing. As I'm doing the audio to this video, I'm reading the instructions as I'm going through it. The main thing you have to do is, well, you have to crack the code as laid down. At first, what you got is a 3-numbered code. The black line signifies that one of the numbered digits is in the correct identity and in the correct position. If you have a white line, that signals that one of your number's digits is in the correct identity, but in the incorrect position. So the black line looks like I've got a number in the correct position. It's not telling me which one. I have to figure that out on my own. The white number says I've got numbers in correct identity, but in incorrect position. So I'm having to determine what those are. In the one-player games, well, the left number tells me the number of guesses that players have made during the present game. At the end of the game, the left controls player score appears in that position. The right-hand score, this number appears throughout the game to show the numbers of consecutive games of Codebreaker you have played. So far, in this, I played one game, and I am getting pretty stumped. So, yep, hit the reset button. See if I can try this again. Codebreaker is not the only game on here. It also has a 2-player game, and apparently the right player must also enter a guess. And a player's score, 1-player Codebreaker, it's determined by the number of guesses needed to identify the secret number code. If the player guesses the code on the 6th guess, the score is 6. And your object is to score the lowest possible score. So basically, you have to keep as low a number as possible in order to guess the code. And 2-player, and player scores 1 point when he guesses the code, and that's when you're playing on a 2-player game. And apparently, with the difficulty switch, the right difficulty switch is in the A position, you will have 8 guesses. But if you're in the B position, you will have 12 guesses. It definitely is a brain game, and it can drive you, well, it can drive you crazy trying to figure it out. So, this is probably one of the games why it turned a lot of people away from the keyboard controllers, because this is definitely a thinking game, and there are people that, well, just want to play in a game that they can enjoy. I don't think this is one of those games that one can enjoy. It'll definitely be a brain teaser if you do enjoy those, but if you just want to just sit back and have fun during a game, just blowing away aliens or going through a maze or racing a car, this is not the game for you. This is 4-player Codebreaker, and here you're just having to put in the 4-digit numbers and determine which ones are the right ones and which ones are not. And already I have a black and a white dash, so I've got one number in the correct position, and I have a right number, but not in an incorrect position. It is no less frustrating, no less aggravating. The cursor you move with the keyboard to determine what number you want to put somewhere. The keyboard controllers, in a moment, you're basically using the upper 6 digits as far as I can tell. And then the pound button is your enter button on all the games. And lastly, there is an old mathematical game on here called NIM. So it's the oldest mathematical game known to man. And there are one of 4 stacks of objects, and you must take turns with the computer or another player removing any number of objects from any stack. During the turn, you must take at least one object and take objects out of only one stack. And so there are 2 types, regular and nim-misere. I mean, regular, you win the game when you remove the last object from the screen, or nim-misere, you lose the game when you remove the last object from the screen. And apparently you score 1 point when you win a nim game. In regular games, you score 1 point when you remove the last object from the screen. But in nim-misere games, you score 1 point when you force your opponent to remove the last object from the screen. So basically, it looks like nim-misere is a 2-player nim game, and you're going against an opponent with that one. From what I can gather with nim, you depress the keyboard controller, the cursor, to move the cursor on the screen. Number of times you press the button determines the stack where the cursor will appear. And once you move the cursor to the stack where you intend to remove objects, you press apparently any number button on the keyboard controller, and that number of stacks will disappear. And when you're satisfied with all the moves you made, you press enter. But it does cause me a little confusion, as it looks like stacks have appeared. This is another brain teaser that'll drive you crazy. I was a cocky kid when I got Codebreaker. I thought I'd just plug it in, pick it up and play. Read the comic read the catalog, and I thought I'd get it pretty quick. I hit a brick wall immediately going in. It wound up being shelved for the longest time. I think even if I kept playing it, I'd still need the instructions on hand to know which way I was going, which way was up. But you also don't like turning away from a challenge. And mastering Codebreaker is on the list of challenges that I probably should tackle. But it's also not first in line on my list of challenges. It might be a while before I get to it. But up next, well, this one I found a little more relatable. And yeah, even though I probably still would have to look at the instructions for it, this was one they could figure out pretty well. A game of concentration, also known as Hunt and Score. Out of all the games to figure out, Hunt and Score is probably the simplest to dive in and to pick up and play. It later changed its name to A Game of Concentration for reasons of their own. Essentially, you're to push the buttons on the keyboard and determine which pictures match. And open up the door, pick one, pick the second. If they match, you get some tiles off the game board. If you open the door and you miss, well, then you lose the game. So your goal is to take the cards, find the matches, take them off the screen, and keep going until there are no more cards left. Simple little proposal. Again, it's also a game of concentration, a brain game. But I will openly admit I like the Hunt and Score title better. You press the button of the card you want to open first time, and then you push the buttons again for the next card you wish to open. And you get the right tiles, and off the cards go. You keep going till there are no more left, as I mentioned before. Simple little brain game. Definitely one of the more fun brain teasers. And I believe it's also one that we might have played in the past, so putting it on screen, it's quite enjoyable. Finish out the rest of the game because we're almost done. Table and a chair, and a table and a chair. Game over, you win. It was so much fun, I decided to give it another go, and I won this one too. But as you go later levels, it does get a little bit harder. How hard? This hard. A lot more spaces, a lot more objects, and maybe a little more frustration. This one will definitely require a lot more time and patience on your part. But still fun nonetheless. As I mentioned before, they changed the name to A Game of Concentration from Hunt and Score, but I like the Hunt and Score title better. And the premise is pretty simple. You're trying to find two of the same card and clear the screen before you. Start off simple, then you get bigger boards and a lot more shapes behind that you have to figure out. Hunt and Score is a game I'd love to go back to. And yeah, I can find some memory help in the process as well. Keeps the mind sharp. A lot of these keyboard games, I think, are meant to do that. They are meant for the educational titles. Up next, a series of games all in one cartridge. Brain games. These are the titles of the games in Brain Games. And this was also before the ESRB was formed. So if you got some thoughts on 1 to 4 and Game 19, put them away. These were made for a different time. These titles were for a different time. Get your mind out of the gutter. The first, Touch Me. Get your minds out of the gutter. This was titled long before the ESRB came into play. Basically, with this game, you are to, well, it says touch, touch, go, and you are to follow along with the melody as the computer lays it out. First, you'll be treated to a screen that says wait, and it will tell you what to touch. And when you hit go, you are to follow along with it. Wait, touch, 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 touch. Constructing a melody to go with the what the computer had come up with. This is very much along the lines of Simon and other memory games that you may have come across. If you remember the Simon game, you had a circle, 4 panels, and you had to follow along the sounds and the melody as it was laid out to you. If you missed, well, then you lost the game. The second game is Count Me. It works the same along the lines as Touch Me, except you are using a series of numbers instead. The numbers flash below, and you have to follow along. You will come across a screen that says wait and show you the numbers to follow. And then when it goes to the go screen, you have to follow that same number. You cannot miss anything, or 4 misses according to the instructions manual, and the game ends. Again, along the same memory principle as Touch Me, and you still have to follow the same memory patterns. That's not just in here, but in other memory games as well. Both Touch Me and Count Me are pretty challenging and pretty mentally stimulating. I would definitely play this again if need be. It's fun, it's relaxing, it's challenging, and it really gets you to focus on your memory a lot more. I'd say give this a play. Simple enough. Have fun. Next up, Picture Me. Rules in this is you are shown a series of objects in the center column. The column is then scrambled on the left-hand column. And in the right-hand column, you have to determine the right order that the objects had appeared in. You have to get the objects in the right order and not miss. Unfortunately, as you're trying to figure out the order, you also have to figure out how the keyboard controllers work in getting the right order together. So it is a double compound, because not only do you have to figure out the game, but you also have to figure out how your controllers work. So this would definitely be a headache for anyone that just wants to get lost in the game. This is one game I don't think a lot of people will want to get lost in. Sorry to say. It's a little more challenging. If you're up to the challenge, enjoy. But if you're not, maybe you might want to give this one a pass. Next up, Find Me. If you remember Sesame Street, you remember the fun little musical games that says one of these things is not like the other, and after the musical song you have to determine which one was not like the other. You were relying on the center column of the keyboard controllers, and you basically see which one is different from all the others. Nice little fun simple game. Next up, Add Me. In this one, you have a series of numbers in the four spaces below, and you have to add them together to come up with the sum. And you have the top square, which will tell you how much time you have left to add up the numbers, and you have to come up with the right answer. So like 10, 9, and you add them all together. So it's essentially a math game. And last, Play Me. Yeah, get your mind out of the gutter again. This one is more musical tones. You're essentially using the keyboard as a musical instrument. And the instruction books do provide you with some musical choices. 1 for 2-player and 3 for 1. One is a birthday song that Disney does not like to play anymore. And when someone brings it up, they always say, I know the song. There's also Twinkle Twinkle and 3 Blind Mice. You have a little more imagination. You can probably come up with a little more music of your own. So, let's listen to the tones a little bit. Have fun, enjoy. Not bad, huh? Hope I don't get a copyright claim for this. Despite the titles that would have people scratching their heads today, a lot of Brain Games is playable and enjoyable. Although you will come across some where you're figuring out how the controller works. But yeah, Brain Games is definitely worth it's definitely worth a play. And much like Hunt and Score, it's meant to sharpen the mind, sharpen memory, and keep the mind sharp. Basically, sharp is the key. But you really want to get your mind sharp. You really want to open the door to a whole new world. Well, this next game was, it's not a game, although it is on the game cartridge. It is basic programming. Okay, I'm going to say this flat out. You can't really play this game with the cartridge alone. You need the controllers, instructions manual, and also these overlays that come with the game. Okay, and I'm going to tell you, as I've been going through this, making this video, I was reading the instructions the whole time. And as you're seeing the cursor change color, you're going to realize that that is very important for this, well, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a game. It is a learning tool for basic programming. Not a perfect one, but it is one. When you take a look at your keyboard controller, especially the left one, you'll notice the bottom center button has changing of color. The changing of the color is important, as it allows you to determine what on the keyboard you can put in. When you take a look at the keyboard overlays, you'll find a lot of the functions are color-coded, letters, types, you name it. When you input the center button to change your cursor color and you look at the overlays, they tell you what function or letter or number you're putting into this program. When you get to the difficulty switch, it is only the left difficulty switch that is in play. Switch it to the A or the B position, allows you to switch from the titles to the graphics screen. Before you right now is the region screen. You have status, you have symbols, you have speed, and you have program. Going through this, the status region will show you the amount of memory available you have in any time for the program. It will also give you the speed of execution for your program. There's also the symbol scene, which tells you how many numbers you can have. The speed, which tells you how fast your program will run. There's also the program region, which will be used to give the computer those instructions. I am using these instructions as I am writing a sample program in this, well, not necessarily a game, it is a learning tool. But as you look through it, it's not perfect, as when usually with BASIC, it's not usually just like lines 1 and 2. It's usually like lines 10, 20, mostly along 10s and I believe even 5s for a bit. Also here is the graphics region, which allows you to see how the program looks on a screen. As we look through this, you notice the cursor will be changing color, as I am having to use this to put numbers and symbols and also functions into this program. I'm going to skip ahead and really get into the dirty work. Give me one more minute. Well, I just changed to change the cursor here. But let me skip ahead a bit to show you some real nitty-gritty stuff. Okay, going on to the line 2, I actually changed to the green to put in the print command. What am I going to be printing? Well, hold on a moment. Changing the color again. Print A. And, alright, hold on one moment. Oh, we're going to the next line so we can enter the next line. It's like 1, 2, 3. Usually it's 10, 20, 30 if my memory on BASIC serves me correctly. Although some will say memory is fallible. I won't argue with that at times. Going to the go to command. Putting in go to, again, we're changing the color again. Go to 1. And what else? A little change in the speed of the processor. Okay, so taking that down to 15. It'll control how fast the program will go. At the end, I just decided to change the speed to 1. Let's see what else is next. Stack. Let's see, the stack command region that will give you the temporary results of your program as your computer is running it. Okay, shall we see what stack will be about? Well, apparently stack is just going to run the program as it is specified. A +1, 0, as we are seeing it play out before us. Now this is a small little program, but it shows that the basic programming concept can work. And if you look at the instructions further on, it shows you a little more developed programs. And you might even, with a little imagination, decide to tinker with a few other programs as well. It's also been said that this program can play a pretty sweet game of Pong once you apply it. All in all, this is basic programming. Nice little entry, not perfect, but like many keyboard games, frustrating, intellectually challenging, but once you get past it, you can have some fun with it. Not perfect, extremely limited, but it's a good gateway into learning how to program a basic language at the time. It's a good way in before you can graduate probably to your father's TSR 80 from Radio Shack or whatever. As I looked through the listings of keyboard controller games, I found two listings that I was not aware of. Magic Card and Memory Match. As far as I know, Atari made no games by those titles, so I'm assuming they're third-party developers. But I haven't been able to find any titles, well, any other information on those games. So that might be something to look at, and they might also be pretty rare to find, even though the keyboard controller is not exactly a it is a, how should I put it? It's not as favored as the joysticks or the paddles or even the driving controller. And the driving controller I'll get to later on. Something else I want to show off first. This is a homebrewed synthesizer cart, the Synth Cart. It allows you to turn your 2600 into a musical instrument. The Synth Cart. It allows your 2600 to be a musical instrument. You can do either keyboard controllers or video touchpad. Both work the same. Left-hand keyboard or touchpad does individual notes. The right does medleys. I am not sure of any other way to save your work, but let's sit back and enjoy what there is in the music. Hope some of you had better ideas and are inspired by this cartridge. I played the Synth Cart on the keyboard controllers, but the keyboard controllers are not the only option that the Synth Cart could be played on. This leads me to the next controller on the list. This is the Video Touchpad. A very unique controller as it was made for specifically one game. A game that was made for the Atari computers, yet found its way ported to the 2600 system. But the 2600 system needed a little help, hence the development of this controller. But was it necessary? Well, let's take a look at the game it was made for. Star Raiders. Starting off, you have the Star Raiders logo. And the first thing you can activate is a galaxy map, which will tell you where you're looking to go. And you try to move your ship to where you need to be. There's also a star base in the far right corner. But immediately you are thrown into combat and blown up immediately. Yeah, there was an undignified start. Once more into the breach. Are firing, and the purple haze means you've got your shields up. You got a shield control. And yeah, you are in the middle of alien combat. Looks like you are blasting away TIE fighters. And also maybe some planetoids in the process. I think I got that one. And that planetoid. You're also going to be coming across a Cylon base star, or something that looks pretty close to it. Yeah, Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica, unofficially in the same game, although it's by Atari. That's your starbase, which you have to go to, where repairs refuel, and it lets you know you're complete. And once more, it's back into the game. As soon as you can find where you gotta go. Yeah, you're pretty much using the joystick to determine where you need to be. And you press the button to get to your destination. And we are there. Let's say there's also a hyper warp. And now it's back into the combat. Shoot 'em up, shoot 'em up. A little map off the side helps you log on to your targets there. And right now you have your shields up, but they can be brought down quickly enough. There's your energy on the left. And these I don't have the instructions for anymore, but maybe worth a look. Ooh, looks like I lost my targeting and I'm losing my shields. And yep, shields are down. Looks like I'm getting my targeting back, but I'm going to blast it, and I am done. Okay, last one I did was with the video touchpad. But I also decided to try my hands on doing it with the keyboard controller. See how that worked. I was pretty surprised. Okay, this one I did with the keyboard controllers, which play pretty much the same, although I did use the overlay for the touchpad as my guide. I wanted to see if this would work the same, and it did. Which also got me curious. Why make the touchpad in the first place if all you needed was the keyboard controller? You could have worked with what you had. And I got blown away there. So yeah, going in for one more round. But works the same. You have the same functions, shields, galaxy map, hyperwarp, the whole 9 yards. Why make another controller? Why not just advertise this with needing the one joystick and one keyboard? It definitely would have brought some more life to the keyboard controller. You'd have another overlay to put on with it other than the basic programming overlays that went with it. I can't answer that. That was what Atari decided to do. Maybe they just want something with that's a little more softer on the fingers. The keyboard does have a little bit of a hard button push. And the touchpad does have a little bit of a softer feel to it, although it is also pretty big and cumbersome. Star Raiders is the only game that worked with the video touchpad. Although you have a second touchpad, you can use that as a substitute keyboard controller. But even if you use the touchpad or the keyboard, you're still going to be maneuvering with the joystick. Or D-pads if compatible. It's not bad. It's another shoot 'em up, and you use controllers on the touchpad for other functions.
and your shields are down. Gotta make sure they stay up, otherwise you're going to get blown to bits, which would take too long to do, so I'll just skip to the end. They got me again.
When you compare the keyboard to the video touchpad, in retrospect, they're both the same controller. I wondered for a bit why they even made the touchpad in the first place if the keyboard worked just as well. I guess if you think about it, the video touchpad might have been an unnecessary development that was required. You played Star Raiders, you can use a joystick, but also use one keyboard controller. And you take a look, and you get two touchpads. You just have another set of keyboards. Whether you use the video touchpad or the keyboard controllers for Star Raiders, that will be your decision. But now we go to the last controller on the list. The driving controllers. And the sole game that those controllers were made for. It was called Indy 500 by Atari at the time. But the name that would probably be best known by now, especially as you probably don't have the rights to use the Indy 500 name anymore, is Race, which was made by Sears Telegames. When you compare the paddle and the driving controllers together, there are some similarities in design, but there are notable differences. The end of the paddle controllers is meant to accommodate two sets of paddles. Also, when you move the knob, it does have a definitive stop point, which means there's only a limit to how far the paddle can go. The driving controller only has a single end, so it is a single player controller. Also, when you play the knob, turn the knob, it has no stop. But unlike the paddle controller, you can turn it either way. So, while the paddle definitely has a stop to it, the driving controller does not. Starting off with Indy 500, we got a two-player game. And yeah, the driving controllers definitely work using the original system. Sadly, not with the 2600 Plus. And right now, playing with two-player, well, you're just driving around on your own in a circle. So, it's a lot more fun when you've got a second player. Which, actually, this game does have some one-player action to it. I will have to ask, however, yeah, what I just did there, don't do that, because then you don't get any more laps. It won't count anymore. It's like no matter how many times you go around, it won't count on anything if you decide to take that shortcut. You're going to have to go around in the circle in order for the laps to count. Okay, deciding not to go anymore. Let's see what the other car will do. Alright, just move you along. Yep, I decided to hit. Yeah, I decided to hit that. Yeah, that's what you get for trying to experiment a little bit. So, circling around. Yep, cross the finish line once, and you gotta go all the way around, or it does not count. Kind of like the Showcase Showdown wheel on the Price is Right. Gotta go all the way around at least once, or it doesn't count. Which is an interesting description, but in this case, it works. But here we do have some one-player action. In this one, however, you have to beat the clock. If I can get out of the gate, figure I was fiddling with the control a little bit. Bear with me a bit. And Getting it on moving. Okay, just got a few seconds, but well enough to demonstrate what we do. Yep. Circling around. You get a lap. Circling. The objective is to circle around as many times as you can in 60 seconds. Your opponent is the clock. It's nice for a solitary game, but I think you really do miss the joy of playing with an opponent. So let's try this for real with the actual 60 seconds. I'm going to loop around and see how many times I can go. It's always yeah, it's like the driving controller you really do mess around with, and I'm always hitting the button lead footing. Maybe there's some skill involved where you do not hit the sides. Maybe that just involves pressing the button not so much, but for me, yeah, this is a force of habit. I'm always pushing that, I'm always keeping that button pressed and then lay off when I gotta regain footing. So 3 laps so far. Let's try to do it a little much. So, getting a little more control. Not much though, but a little. So 5, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 points, 6 laps. Not bad at all. You ask me. Okay, game over. I think I did pretty good there. And of course, there's also another track you do. This one a little more curvy, but still same 60 seconds. And just gotta beat the time. So it's not always the same tracks, there are different tracks. And yeah, this one also has a 2-player. But yeah, it's like solitary games. Indy 500, or Race as it's called on the telegames, does allow you for solitary games. But like Combat and Warlords, and I'd say Surround, it's a lot more fun with an opponent. And yeah, I guess the Atari, back then, while it did allow for solitary games, I think it also had a lot more fun when you went head-to-head with an opponent. At least back then, yeah, games were a little more of a 2-player affair. Some still are, but they're a lot more solitary now. 3 laps, could be better. This is a 2-player game of catch the dot. Yeah, you gotta loop around and catch the dot. 2-player version, it's like both have to catch the dot and catch it the most times. And again, there is a 1-player version, and the clock is your enemy. Catch the dot in 60 seconds. Yep, 3 times. If anything, this is kind of for your own skill. 5 actually. Just made 6. And I'd say don't try to cross the screens. You probably won't count those counts. But in 9, 26 seconds. 10. Cool. 11, 12. Yep, here. No, over here. 18. 13 catches. And then, gotcha. Yeah, the barricades really do get you. Come on, sweetheart. 15, 4, 3, 2, 16. Last second. Not bad. Okay, and this one, it's also another catch the dot. And yeah, there's a 2-player version in here, but yep, catch the dot. And apparently you can go, you've got openings that you can cross the other side on. Okay, 4, 5. Get through it. Getting to them might be a bit of an issue. But yeah, you're more focused on getting that dot because that's where your points go. Alright, 8, 9. Why didn't I decide to go through those openings? That's that dang dot. You always gotta catch that dot. Come on. Yep, 13, 14. 13 seconds. Alright, going up. These weren't bad designs for cars, I guess. Definitely had their fun. And I did not make it the last second. Okay. 2-player catch the dot. 1, 2. Let's see. And, yep. Also hit the other car. That's an obstacle. 4. Again, a lot more fun when you have an opponent. Yeah, I know. I need to get out more. A lot of people say that. Well, mostly family members. I just get myself stuck there. Or am I trying something? Nope. And 8, 9, and 10, 11, 12. This one you could probably go on for a while. Doing a little something different here. Yep, I went through the hole, and yeah, it does seem to work. It does seem to count. So go through a couple of clips and just show something different, show something new. But yeah, you can go through those and wind up on the other side, and it does not count against you. This one's very interesting because what you're doing here is playing tag. And when you're blinking, you're the car that's it. And this is a 2-player. There's no 1-player action to this. And yeah, you can go through the openings and they would not count against you. But yeah, it's hitting the car. You're just saying the other car's it. You're just running around. Or, well, actually, alright. Got through that. So, went through that barricade, but I think it was also the opening, so. But yeah, get the other car, tag him, and try to be it. Probably not so much. Well, actually, I don't think you can be it for too long, so. But, moving on. Yeah. This is Ice Track. You're a lot more slippery on this one. And yeah, there is a 2-player ice. But this one, yeah, it's still beat against the time and just still doing circles around. 60 seconds on the clock. Just try to get as many as you can. And don't be on the lead foot all that much. So, yeah, so this is, somewhat real driving conditions. You do not want to beat feet on an icy track. And just be careful and just run up your score before the time expires. 5, not bad. Let's see if we can make 6, 8, 7, 6, 5. Yep. 6 laps, 2, 1. And not bad. Although I did wind up hitting the end. And one more. Yep, a different track. So we're doing a little more looping. And yeah, the design does call for you probably to hit barricades a little more. But still, the time still applies. 60 seconds. Try to get as many laps as you can. This one is a little more curvy and turns and probably provides a little more of a challenge. Alright. Moving around. Circle. Yeah, 26. So I will get one more lap in. Now let's see. 20 seconds. Can I get in another? Hang on. Circling 4. Let's see, 10, 9, 8. Can I get in the 5th? Let's not say we did. 4, 3, 2, 1. No. Indy 500, or race as you prefer to call it, it is a fun game, whether you're one player or two player. Atari, I think, really preferred the two-player atmosphere. It does seem like a lot of their games, or their earlier titles, were opponent-driven. You're facing off against an opponent. Sadly, Indy 500/Race was the only game made for the driving controllers by Atari. However, in fan circles, new life found its way into the driving controllers. One way I'm going to explore that is hopefully during my Christmas video in a couple of months. But one way to explore that right now is a modded version of Asteroids. Asteroids plus DC, which is Asteroids plus driving controller. Asteroid driving controllers. Essentially, it is the same game, but you get to use the driving controllers on this one. And the asteroids are more closer to the vector line design. At least they're more like hollowed out shapes than 3D constructions. I am basically using the driving controller to move around and fire, but you will still be called upon to use the joystick controllers to move on and activate your hyperspace. When blasting around, actually, you circle around, you just blast and shoot, but to move, yeah, you gotta use the joystick. Up, down, left, right, or actually you push down, that's your hyperspace. Fun game, and it proves that, yeah, the driving controllers do work on this when you're turning it around, making it a little more authentic and closer to the old Asteroids arcade game, where you moved around on using the paddle knob. There was no joystick as far as I can recall on the old Asteroids game. You had to use thrust. And yeah, there was a hyperspace. I'd be careful of hyperspace because once you disappear through hyperspace, you're going to have no idea where you end up. Much like the same with the old, well, not the old, but the original Asteroids game on the 2600. You still had to watch yourself, be careful. You have your lives indicator up on the top, which represents your ships. I believe on the old Asteroids game, all you had was your number of ships. You had no ship indicators. Here you do. And the ship is a different design. Well, close to it. When you take a look at the old Asteroids game, or actually, let's just say the original one, it's much like the design you see in Atari's game Space War. It's pretty much the same ship. Oh wait, I forgot something, didn't I? I forgot this puppy. The Atari Kids controller. Well, I'm going to have to get to this another time. But don't worry. This is another controller that gets no love. And I will make sure it gets the love that it should have. But this controller and the games that go with it are in a class by themselves. But you take a look at the surface, it does kind of look like the keyboard controllers, doesn't it? Maybe something food for thought later on. At the end of the day,
Whether these controllers get the love and respect of fans or not, they are part of the Atari mythos and they are part of the Atari history. I think the Atari 2600 Plus should have something for the keyboard controllers. At least. The driving controller, well, there's only one game made for that, so that might be a little difficult. Unless Atari was looking to see what the fan community had to offer and they could have their own driving controller package. But with the exception of Magic Card and Memory Match, Atari does have enough for a 4-game cartridge, much like the paddle controllers. The trick is, what do you do with the keyboard controllers? Do you update the firmware? That's one option. Or do you decide to do what the designers of the Super FX microchip could do when they had Star Fox to make? The hardware was set, but they needed a workaround to find a way to make a 3D game that was Star Fox. And they came up with the Super FX microchip and put in the game. Is Atari going to make a new series of keyboard controllers that could work with the 2600 Plus that allow it to play the keyboard controller games? And by proxy, maybe even the driving controller as well? Because the button on the driving controller works. It's the knob that does not. But the keyboard controller, that's a little more complicated. So maybe that might require a little more help. These games can be frustrating. Some may not consider it as fun as they would a game of Asteroids or Combat or Space Invaders, where you're just moving your joystick, pointing and shooting. Or like Night Driver, where you're just driving down with the paddle controls, or Breakout, where you're trying to break through a wall. The keyboard controller was an educational tool for educational games. Some say edutainment is not a seller. But I think broadening minds and sharpening them. And also to honor a part of Atari's history, not just gloss it over. Because, yeah, the keyboard should be represented. As should the touchpad, even if it can be considered another keyboard. And the driving controller. These controllers they deserve their moments too. Atari, I don't care whether it's a high priority or not. I'm hoping you make it happen. Feel like I missed out on a game and want to nominate one of your own? Check me out on social media or leave a like and a comment below. See y'all next time, and don't forget to click and subscribe. Till next time.